It's so useful to have this kind of big looming deadline to just kind of put the positive pressure under you to learn more about the industry, learn more about what I'm trying to do. Let's pause this music. Hi, this is episode 3 or part 3 of developing an animated series based on my children's book series, Let's Find Yaya and Boo, and we're just getting started. And a couple of weeks ago, I discovered this grant that was for the development of an animated series. Well, it's broader than that, but it worked perfectly for what I'm doing. It's through Canada Media Fund, and what I learned is, for me, there are certain motivators. And this was a very big motivator. The idea of having a deadline, which happened to be 5 days from when I discovered it, using that to kind of force me to get into the thick of what I'm trying to create. It's so useful to have this kind of big looming deadline to just kind of put the positive pressure under you to learn more about the industry, learn more about what I'm trying to do, even just to make connections. It's been just such a brilliant thing to do. So I don't know what it is that will motivate you to do the big thing that you want to do, but this helped me a whole lot. So I want to share the process with you and kind of what I learned out of it. One thing I learned, however, is that there are people who write grants. They do this. That's all they do is write grants. And they're very good at it. And I got to talk to a couple of those people, and they were very helpful. Something about grant writers, they want to help other grant writers. I find it's not very competitive. You are going head to head with a lot of other people competing for the same pool of money, but everybody kind of wants to help everybody else. So if this video helps anyone, I'm glad it did. And if you have any specific questions, write them in the comment and I'll do my best to answer. I am not a professional at this. I have done it a few times in the past and I haven't done it for a very long time. So this is the first time I've done it in a very long time. But I did learn some things, and I am going to share them with you. So there's nothing to lose in the process of writing a grant, of applying for a grant. You got nothing to lose. If at the very least, even if I don't make it on time, even if I give up halfway through, I'm still further along than I was when I started. I wanted to quit a few times. Luckily, I had some friends nearby who said, no, just go for it. And it reminded me that I had nothing to lose. And I did. And I went for it and I lost nothing, except for a weekend. I guess like maybe 4 days. 4 days working nonstop, tirelessly until I was exhausted at the end of the day and couldn't write another word or do another thing. But it really had me thinking about like all of the details of the project. And that's the next thing that writing a grant really helped me with, is clarifying these details. I realized that animating is way more expensive and it's because of how labor intensive it is. This $30,000 grant actually won't get me very far. It'll help me with the writing process. It'll help me to develop my idea, but that's what it's for. It's to help develop an idea and get it into pre-production. Another thing that it helped me develop was the name of the project. So I started with The Adventures of Yaya and Boo, or the Yaya and Boo Show, and eventually I just kind of honed it down to Yaya and Boo. Because that's what it is. It's just Yaya and Boo. And then I threw an exclamation mark at the end of that because I thought, chef's kiss. I was also able to hone in on a stylistic approach that I want to go for. All of these things are still up for grabs, are still in the open, are still fluid, though they are a lot more solid than when I started this. The stylistic approach is definitely, I want to explore the idea of photography in the background or video in the background of like real sets and settings and areas and animated characters up front. So Yaya and Boo and whoever else is in the show, all of these characters are animated in a style that's similar to my book, Find Momo Everywhere. Another thing I loved about writing a grant is that it built excitement. As you kind of develop your idea a little more, as you learn more about what you're doing and get to kind of see underneath and look at all those details, you get to love it more. You fall a little more in love with it. And that's what happened. I fell a little more in love with not only the idea of the show, I fell a little more in love with the idea of my book. Actually, I was worried that like this would be too far from the books, that they would be too separate. But the more I thought about it, the more I learned about the process, and the more I honed in on my idea, the more married the two seemed, and the more excited I got about both of them and creating this whole world. And that's what you're doing in the end, and creating all these things. Underneath it, what builds it is true stories and imagined worlds that I get to create out of nothing. And it's so fun when you look at it that way. When you look at the world that you're building underneath it all, it's so fun. You know, if this all succeeds, this kid somewhere who's 4 years old, who's watching this animated series with Yaya and Boo jumping around in the forest, he picks up a Yaya and Boo book and connects the dots that these are the same dogs, these are the same animals. This imagined world is the same as this real world, and that imagination and reality aren't so far apart from each other. It just kind of, it sparked something in me that kind of got me really excited about this whole process. So. You learn a lot about the industry. I learned just the tip of the iceberg, but I learned a lot about the industry of animation and the industry of TV that I never knew before. I learned that it's the wheels aren't turning right now. Not a lot of shows are being greenlit. A lot of people are being laid off. I don't know why I'm laughing. I guess that's nervous laughter, but it would be very easy to take this as a sign to give up. I guess I have a little hope, but mostly I just want to take action in my life right now and do something that I love and create something along the way that I think is valuable for the world. But it's a very complicated and complex industry, and there's a lot of moving parts, and it's very expensive to do a lot of these things. There's so many incredible production companies. How much could it possibly take to make a little animated pilot? But I realized if I want to do this right, I got to put a lot of effort into it. I got to put a lot of resource into it. I've got to put a lot of my time into it, and I got to find a lot of money to put into it. And I'm excited to do it and see where it takes me. Because why not? Why not? All that being said, I'm not going to let this grant application define whether or not I succeed in this. That's not going to be the deciding factor to whether or not I build the show. So what came out of the grant application process? What can I tell you right now? So the synopsis of the show is the adventures of Yaya and Boo as they explore the world and relive a lot of the memories that they find in a book that they found. Let me try that again. Let me start over. It's the adventures of Yaya and Boo as they explore the world and go on a new adventure every day, and each episode will culminate in the final scene of hide and seek, where they invite the viewer to come into the screen and play hide and seek with Yaya and Boo and a bunch of objects that they found along the way throughout the episode. So it's got this repeating kind of rhythm to it that in each episode, the viewer will get to know that, we get to look forward to the final scene where we get to find the dogs on the screen. I have this image of Yaya and Boo sitting there and talking to the screen, talking to the viewer and saying, okay, are you ready? You're gonna close your eyes and count to 5. And when you open them, we're gonna be hiding and you have to find us. It's just such a fun tie into the book. It's a fun way to interact with viewers. And it's a fun game. We're playing hide and seek. It's gonna be so fun. Come on. But the whole episode, the whole show is revolving around this adventure that they have, honoring this spirit of adventure that always inspired them in their Uncle Momo. Uncle Momo is in there, Big Yellow Van is how they get around, and hide and seek at the end of the episode. Another thing that I had to develop was a story arc for the first season and seeing how that can evolve into subsequent seasons. So the first season, the story arc is really this discovering this book that Uncle Momo had of all of his memories and kind of working their way through the end of the book. And by the end of the season, they get to the end of the book and they get to the last adventure and they do it. And they're sad because this is the last adventure. And at the same time, they're sad because Uncle Momo can't make any more adventures because he's just not around anymore. And so in this final episode, we explore the concept of grief, which is something I like to talk about. I like to be open about. But as they put the book back on the shelf, they discover there's a series of journals and that the adventures don't have to end there. And so in subsequent seasons, they can start their own book and they start their own adventures. Yaya and Boo are obviously the lead characters of the show, and Yaya's personality is going to come through on screen in his clumsiness, in his bigger-than-life energy, in his ready-to-go-ness, in his silliness, in his love to move around and make new friends and meet new people. And then Boo is going to be the kind of older brother, a little more stoic and reserved, and he's anxious, and he needs to self-regulate, and he likes his time alone, and but he's strong and he's athletic, and he can pretty much do anything, and he's always looking out for his little Yaya sibling. Finally, I had to talk about the typical episode length and format and how many episodes in a season, 5 to 10 minutes per episode, 20 to 30 episodes per season. But I like short, and I even think that this could be a really good web series. I think that's kind of where the industry seems to be going. I ended up buying yayaandboo.com and I'm building it out right now. And it's going to be a home for all the books that I make, first and foremost. And there will be these updates and, updates about the show as it progresses. And hopefully, eventually, yayaandboo.com in the future is where you would go to watch the episodes. I mean, that's the dream. Yaya and Boo. So that's it. Over on my Substack, if you want to follow that, I have a lot of the materials that I uploaded to the grant application. It's behind a paywall because I got to make money somehow, but I really do appreciate your support. But there's also an article with all this information written out really neatly for you to digest on my Substack if you go check it out. I hope you enjoyed this one. I hope this was a lot more organized than the previous videos. I am still talking. I'm still here, and I shouldn't be. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for being here, and thank you for your support. See you next time.